So for this video, I want to talk about Microsoft in depth. And if this is your first time stumbling on my small channel, welcome. Hopefully by the end, you may choose to subscribe and or join one of the memberships. But as you may or may not be aware, there is a lot of things going on with Microsoft, from their recent 9,100 and something people that they laid off, Microsoft's decision to prioritize cloud and AI technology, which in my opinion, as I've stated before in a prior video, is largely the reason why Microsoft got rid of those 9,000 plus employees. And then also there's the talk that Game Pass is not profitable. I mean, oh, and then you got certain YouTubers out there, I don't need to mention anybody's name, that continuously make videos that says Microsoft is dead or Xbox is dead. I'm pretty sure if you're in the gaming space, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Let me just be clear. Microsoft, again, as I keep saying to people, is $1 trillion company. And let me just say that if there is any company that's going to go out of business, it would be Nintendo or Sony long before Microsoft goes out of business. Let's just put that in perspective right now. So, while I was cruising online and, doing my YouTube thing, I don't know if you've watched a movie called, it was like dealing with McDonald's, like how McDonald's rose to power. But anyway, I didn't watch the movie, but I watched a breakdown of the movie. And the content creator referenced something that was of particular interest to me, and I'm going to pass it on to you. And I'm going to give you the definition of it. It is something called the Pareto Principal. And as I'm going to just share right now, basically, the Pareto Principle, also known as the 80-20 rule, is a concept stating that roughly 80% of effects come from 20% of causes. In other words, a small number of inputs or efforts often account for the majority of outputs or results. This principle is widely applicable across various fields, including business, economics, and personal productivity. So the reason why I brought this up is because when I was looking at Microsoft and understanding the direction that they have decided to go in, which is the cloud and the AI, I realized that they are essentially applying the Pareto principle, which essentially states that you are pretty much doing what is profitable. You are doing what is going to give you the most market share, the most money, the most everything. And you cut or you drastically reduce everything else. So if you're Microsoft and you have all of these employees, all 9,000 of these employees, and the vast majority of them are not working in the field that you as Microsoft are aiming to go into, then it's an easy way for you to recoup costs, to redirect that saved money into the new company strategy that you have set forth. Translation, I know that was kind of wordy, is because Microsoft, to my understanding, they invested $80 billion into this new direction. So in order for them to recoup a lot of that money and to basically save a lot of money, they could just get rid of those 9,000 employees. And as cold-hearted as it is, it's business at the end of the day. And I'm not here to condone it. I'm not here to say it's a good move, a bad move, but I will say that Microsoft is very confident in the whole AI aspect. Me personally, I'm not a fan of AI when it comes to a large scale. If it's just like, all right, I want to use AI to find new hashtags and channel tags for my YouTube video, fine. But in terms of using AI to completely do my YouTube video, that's something entirely different. And there are people that prefer to have this large scale implementation of AI. But to those people, I feel that they're very naive, because a large scale implementation of AI is going to just largely replace you, unless you are neck deep in AI in terms of like that's your job. You can kiss whatever job you're working on goodbye, and we've seen this now with Microsoft, them getting rid of 9,000 employees. So, I have spoken about this in a prior video, and I appreciate each and every person that decided to watch the video. But I think when you look at Microsoft objectively as a company, and you look at the Xbox division, and you look at where Xbox is currently, it gets a lot of flack, it gets a lot of criticism. But most of these people, most of your favorite content creators, don't have a goddamn idea what they're talking about. They don't understand how Microsoft and Xbox got to this point. So let me just elaborate on this point real quick. The reason why Microsoft and Xbox got to where they are now is largely because of the 7th generation. I have said this now. If you're a long-time subscriber, you know where I'm going with this. But for you new people out there, I want to just educate you on this. During the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 era, which was the 7th gaming generation, Microsoft was winning until Sony pulled out the game called The Last of Us, and Sony ended up winning that generation. But throughout that whole time, Microsoft, even during the 6th generation with the OG Xbox and the PlayStation 2, Microsoft was trying to crack into the Asian territories, the territories that's been long dominated by both Sony and Nintendo. So with the Xbox 360, Microsoft decided to create the console to be more appealing to Japanese audiences. This is the reason why, if you look at the OG Xbox, it was basically a big black box, right? Let's call it what it is. Big black box with a giant green X on it. It was built to last. It was built like a tank. It had a lot of vents. That Xbox had virtually no hardware issues whatsoever. Fast forward to the Xbox 360 and Microsoft's attempt to try to cater to the Asian demographics to try to gain a foothold in those territories. What ends up happening is the Japanese markets completely ignore the Xbox 360, despite the fact Microsoft bent over backwards in every conceivable way, reducing the price of the Xbox 360 in Japanese markets, also bringing in many Japanese developers to create more JRPGs. You name it, Microsoft did it. They just could not crack that territory. So this also led to the hardware issue that was never present in the original Xbox in the 6th generation, which was the dreaded the Red Ring of Death, the Red Ring of Doom, or whatever you want to call it. That was there because Microsoft, in their attempt to make the Xbox 360 small and sleek and cute and able to stand up and all this nonsense, they did not have enough proper vents. The architecture of the console was very poorly created because they went with a design choice that was very different than the original Xbox that had no hardware issues. And as a result, the inside of the Xbox 360 was essentially cooking the circuits, which led to the Red Ring of Death. So now we fast forward now into the 8th generation with the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. The Microsoft decided to go back to the traditional, the big black box, because if you look at the the Xbox One. It's essentially a big giant VCR. That console, again, another one that's built to last. So that proves my point. Now, Microsoft already recognizing that all of their efforts that they made to appeal to the Asian demographics was a complete waste of time and money. So therefore, they deemed the Asian territories as tier 2. What that ended up doing is Microsoft basically conceded the 8th generation, the console wars, and that stupid term people like to keep alive today. The real console war, as we knew it, or as I knew it back then, died in the 7th generation. Microsoft was like, look, we're no longer partaking in this, for better or worse. So whenever I used to read and hear the articles of, oh, the PlayStation 4 is outselling the Xbox One 3-1 or 2-1, I would roll my eyes, because I would know that, of course, PlayStation is outselling them, because Sony released the PlayStation 4 in 55 plus territories at launch. You know how many territories Microsoft launched the Xbox One at launch in 2013? 13. So how could you not beat Microsoft in hardware sales? So to me, that was really just a stupid point that the Sony fanboys that were really, the so-called journalists, which were just Sony fanboys in disguise, they kept bringing and hammering that point over and over and over again throughout the entire 8th generation. So now, if you've stuck with me and haven't clicked off the video, now we're in the 9th generation of the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. Now, with everything that has culminated and has led up to this point, Microsoft realizes now that the power is no longer in gaming console sales. That ship has sailed for them. With the addition of Phil Spencer, maybe midway or toward the end of the 8th generation. I forgot exactly when Phil came on, but I know, thankfully, he replaced that idiot Don Matrick. You know, once Phil came on with his team and they put forth the Game Pass subscription service, backwards compatibility, Microsoft, the company, recognized, okay, we have something here, because we're basically gaining revenue over the course of time that is beyond just the point of sale of like, okay, we're going to buy this console, we're going to sell the console at a loss, which is what most gaming companies do, to try to lock you into that particular console's ecosystem. So if you buy a PlayStation, you are now within the Sony ecosystem. So all of the DLC, the games, the controllers, all of that will help to basically recoup the money that Sony lost when you bought your PlayStation 5. That's how the whole console market works. What Microsoft has managed to do now, Microsoft has created multiple revenue streams that a lot of your favorite content creators and a lot of the so-called insiders seem to not fully grasp. And then instead, the highlights or the headlines go as, oh, well, Microsoft is doomed because they're bringing Gears of War to PlayStation. They're doomed because of this. They're doomed. They have no idea what they're talking about. It is a very small and widely known concept in business called licensing. Okay, Microsoft licenses a particular game to be on Sony hardware, where in this case we can say Gears of War. And for every Gears of War title that is purchased within the Sony ecosystem, Microsoft gains 70%. So again, and I have said this before, but it begs repeating. Since we know that the PlayStation 5 greatly outnumbers the Xbox Series S and X in terms of installed base, that term basically means how many people globally actually own a PlayStation versus an Xbox. So since you have more people that own a PlayStation, if you factor in the amount of times Microsoft gains that 70% for every time a Microsoft title is sold on Sony hardware, it adds up. And let's not also forget the Game Pass subscriptions from the console side, the Game Pass subscriptions from the PC side, the downloadable content. People are still, even though not that many, but people are still buying Xbox hardware. So Microsoft is getting money hand over fist. This is why it is so annoying to me when I hear these idiots that don't know jack shit about what they're talking about. They're saying, oh, Microsoft is doomed. $1 trillion company doomed. Really? A console brand that, while it's being outsold by PlayStation and Nintendo, but it's still managing to make money and still be profitable, even despite the noise that I've been hearing that allegedly Game Pass is not profitable. I knew from the very jump, the very first time I heard people talk about that on the X or Twitter platform, I didn't give it much credence because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Game Pass is profitable. But there was a very good video I watched, and I will link the video in the description. I urge you to check it out. It's made by a guy named Destin. He's an Xbox guy, and he really weighed in on that whole Game Pass profitability aspect. So I'm not going to go through the video right now. I'll leave it for you to check out. But suffice to say, it was a large Twitter exchange talking about the viability and the profitability of Game Pass. And so a lot of people were weighing in, and based on Dustin's video, which was very insightful, he basically found out and reached the conclusion that Game Pass is in fact profitable. See, this is what people need to understand about Game Pass. Game Pass, when Microsoft brings a game into the service, it's not done for free. So if you are a developer of a particular game, Microsoft just doesn't have the power to just take whatever game they want and put it in Game Pass, and you as the developer aren't getting shit. That's nonsense. Different games command different prices. We can look at this in a very simple way. Do you think the cost of a Grand Theft Auto game is the same as a game like, what's another game? Street Fighter? No. Two different genres, but both of those games command a very different price. Grand Theft Auto commands a very high price, and I'm using that as an example. So different games, those developers will get a different price to have their game in the Game Pass service. Now, there are other metrics, and I guess not metrics, but incentives. That's the word, incentives. So Microsoft tracks how long you are playing that, whatever particular game you are playing, they are tracking that. They're tracking how many, like let's say if the game has DLC, they're tracking that. If you decide to buy the game, so basically Microsoft is tracking all this. So let me just say that game of the year contender, Claire Obscure Expedition 33, a very excellent game. Even though I have to admit I have not played it yet, I've actually been getting into the Oblivion remaster, but anyway, let me not digress. Let me not digress. So the Claire game, the developers of that game, and this can apply to other developers as well, there are certain milestones. Now, what I don't know is who decides those milestones. Well, I would venture to say probably Microsoft does. Microsoft could probably say, well, if your game can log in, I don't know, 40 million hours of playtime, we'll give you X amount of dollars. I'm sure it's something like that. And I think each game, those incentive milestones are different. And I think they are on a game by game basis. So I think if your game is not being profitable on Game Pass, it's more than likely because after your initial upfront payment, your game probably just didn't perform well. It did not reach those milestones for you to get additional rewards. Because I have heard that there was a game developer that was a little bit salty and was kind of like throwing shade at Microsoft, talking about how they don't feel that it's a sustainable model, but yet and still Game Pass has been around for a number of years now. So this just sounds like a developer that was just salty as far as I'm concerned, because the developer of Claire Obscure Expedition 33 has nothing but great things to say about Game Pass. So who are you going to really believe? That's up to you. So what else can I say? Let me briefly touch on this whole aspect, not aspect. What am I? The news of canceled games from Microsoft. So that's another thing I heard. So to my understanding, Perfect Dark was canceled. 50% of Turn 10, the development team behind Forza Motorsport, was let go. Even going further in the past, an old game called Scalebound, that was canceled. Up recently, Rare, the development company Rare, their game called Everwild was also canceled. So let me address the cancellations of some of these games. And I want to start off with the most notable one, because I remember back in the day, everybody was ripping Microsoft a new asshole for this. And that was the cancellation of Scalebound. So Scalebound was if memory serves, that game was being developed by Platinum Games. And that game was essentially a hack and slasher with some RPG elements. You ride atop a dragon, and it's a third-person hack and slasher. Now, that game was in development for damn near 10 years. At least damn near, maybe 5, 7. It was in development for a long time. Now, what ended up happening is the lead guy for the development team responsible for Scalebound kept coming to Phil Spencer for additional time, additional resources, and additional money. Now, if you're not aware, Microsoft has a very Xbox. They have a very hands-off approach when it comes to allowing game developers to work on their game. So all Microsoft / Xbox are doing is, like any good supervisor, is let me know of your progress, release dates, milestones, things that happen that's good. Is the game going well? And also, if we have an upcoming Microsoft showcase, we will let you know, and we will hope that you have something for us to present on your behalf. That is how Microsoft has been handling things when it comes to the development outside of their own first party studios. So when it comes to Scalebound, this song and dance was going on for years and years. There was one Microsoft showcase, I can't remember the name of it, but I do remember Scalebound was featured heavily. And they had an actual gameplay reveal. It was quite long. And I remember this like it was yesterday. When I was watching that gameplay, my first thoughts were, this game looks like trash. That was my first thought. The gameplay was choppy. Animations were seemingly not fully done. The level design looked very rudimentary. And wouldn't you know it, that not long after that showcase, the news came out that Scalebound was canceled, and then the entire gaming journalist world descended on Microsoft, Xbox, and Phil Spencer. Oh, how can you cancel Scalebound? Oh, Phil Spencer should resign. I heard all this bullshit. But yet and still, I would ask some of these people that I would get into an argument with, at what point in time do you cut your losses? If you have a game, now mind you, Scalebound was not a game like a Baldur's Gate or an Elden Ring. It was not a graphically intensive game. It was a goddamn hack and slasher, third person. This was a game that should have been developed within 3 to 4 years, tops. This game was being developed for damn near 7 years. So at what point in time do you cut your losses? I ask you, at what point, and in fact, that's a question for you, the audience. If you are doing, and it doesn't matter if it's gaming, if you are the boss of something, at what point in time do you continually give resources, give money, give time? How long do you keep doing it when you have nothing to show for it? How long? I'd say Phil Spencer and Xbox gave those guys plenty of time. They bent over backwards for them. So now this brings me up to current with Perfect Dark, with the development team called The Initiative. Now, I remember when The Initiative was first assembled. I was very excited because, you know, I keep my ear to the game industry very, very close. And a lot of the developers that became a part of that team, it was almost like a dream team. They had a lot of key developers, like a lot of movers and shakers, former creative leads of some of your favorite games, all working together. Mind you now, this initiative, the development team, they were not commissioned to develop any other game except Perfect Dark. Let me say that again. The Initiative, they were not responsible for anything outside of Perfect Dark. So they could focus 1 billion% of their resources, their manpower, their financial budget on Perfect Dark. And what is it that I saw? I saw the actual protagonist, Joanna Dark, that's her name, looking like a goddamn man with a horrible wig. That dude's jawline made mine look like I'm a girl. Now, when you contrast that with the older Perfect Dark, I think it was Perfect Dark 0, I think it was for the Xbox 360. If you look at how Joanna Dark looked there, and you contrast that with the manly looking, butch looking so-called female that they decided to make her into, I'm sorry, that wouldn't have flown. Now, they did reveal some gameplay footage of the game, and to me, it didn't look, it wasn't the worst thing I seen. But I feel like, in my opinion, I think they were on the right path. I think they could have just kept building on that. But I'm starting to believe, and this is just my conspiracy theory, my hat that's being put on right now, is that Microsoft realized that Perfect Dark was not trending in the direction that they wanted. People did not like the design of that mannish looking character that's supposed to be Joanna. It's more like John Dark, honestly. And it looked hideous. And, I think they just decided to just cut ties. And I think that's what they ended up doing. Now, when it comes to the game Everwild by Rare, the development team behind Sea of Thieves, I must have seen one trailer for that game in like the last 6 or 7 years. And when I watched that trailer, I can honestly 100% tell you that I had no goddamn idea what the hell that game was about. I had no idea who the audience was for that game. I didn't know what was going on with this game. I don't even know what the game was. It looked nice. It looked cute. And I don't think Microsoft or Xbox knew what the game was. And to be quite honest, I just think that they're like, look, the game had no real identity. We're cutting it. And I think when you look at cancellations of products and services, it just comes down to, can this product make me money? Will this product be profitable? Will this product help to drive sales? If it cannot do any of these things, it is dead weight. And unfortunately, it will be removed. Now, if the game had a lot of potential, a company may give it extra time, which is exactly what Microsoft did when it came to the Scalebound game that I just broke down, and also what they did with the canceled Perfect Dark. So, I think it's very important for people to understand, when you are running a business, a profitable or a for-profit business, you have to put out things, products and services that is going to toe the line, that is going to create sales, generate sales, be profitable, and so on and so forth. Because if it's not, and you're continuously pumping money into it, all you're doing is you're just throwing money down the toilet. That's all you're doing. So I'm not surprised that any of those games were canceled. Now, when it comes to the Turn 10 situation with Forza Motorsport, now I will be the first to tell you that I was never the biggest racing game guy. Back when I was growing up, like when I was 9, 10 years old, I used to play like old games. I think it was called Rad Racer. It was an old Nintendo game. You probably don't remember this game. Before most of you guys' time. But, I did enjoy Gran Turismo, the first game. I got into Project Gotham Racing, which was the precursor before Forza. But I would say that Forza Horizon, in my opinion, was the more profitable game. It was the more profitable franchise, which is probably the reason why the Horizon team is pretty much left intact, whereas the Forza Motorsport team is basically in shambles. Because, again, I don't think Forza Motorsport, Microsoft recognized the numbers that Motorsport were doing was nowhere near the numbers that Horizon was doing. you know, and I actually enjoyed Forza Horizon. I enjoyed the fourth game. I think the fourth game you were in Mexico, I think. At least I think so, if I'm not mistaken. I enjoyed that game. And I did like the second game. I think the second game you were in the UK, if I'm not mistaken. So there's just, you know, so much going on with Microsoft. What else can I talk about here? If you guys are even still stuck around here so far. Oh yeah. So the news broke that I think the price of the Microsoft handheld leaked. If I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head, I'm not looking at the information. I think the basic version is going to be $500 to $600, and the advanced version is going to be close to $1,000. This doesn't surprise me, and I've never been a handheld guy personally. But I want to say this when it comes to the ROG Ally. With Microsoft's handheld, and I think I've spoken on this one time before. Microsoft is playing this very, very smart, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Microsoft, in most things, are playing the long game. LONG. They're playing the long game, and at one point in time, Microsoft was developing their own internal handheld gaming device. Then there were rumors that Microsoft canceled it, but at that time, they had it on pause. Now it has been canceled. So let me tell you what I think is going on with this whole handheld thing, this whole handheld Xbox Rog Ally. Microsoft has interests in the handheld market, but they're not willing to fully commit a lot of their resources. So what they ended up doing is they partnered with ROG, which already has their own gaming device. So as some of you probably are already aware, all Microsoft did was just slap their OS, their operating system, their UI, their ecosystem onto the handheld, because it's a very cost efficient way of testing the hardware handheld market. Because if the ROG Ally sells extremely well, that sends a signal to Microsoft that, okay, we can potentially go into this market. There is a space for us. If the ROG Ally handheld does not do well and it completely flops, well, then Microsoft didn't really fully commit that much money to it anyway. And all they did, again, was just allow you to play. Well, it just boots up the Xbox ecosystem at launch. That's all it is. So it's sort of like this. If you were going to, let's say, if you were going to go to the mall, if you were going to go to the mall anyway, I could tag along with you. And maybe, you know, I'll catch a sale or whatever case is. If there were no sale, then it's like, okay, well, it wasn't a big deal because, you know, you ended up driving me anyway. It's a poor example. It's a poor metaphor, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. Microsoft did not need to commit to any significant hardware or financial resources for this handheld. So as to why it is priced the way it is, I don't know for certain if Microsoft has that much of influence when it comes to the price, because the device itself is by the company ROG, R-O-G. Microsoft did not build the device. They're just merely putting their operating system on it, their UI. So I believe that the price of it is you can blame the ROG people for the price, not Microsoft. Sure, maybe Microsoft had a bit of influence. Sure, I guess you can argue and say that having the Xbox ecosystem probably drove the price up a little bit past the standard ROG Ally device, because again, fully disclose to you, I'm a console guy. So while I am aware of the PC side of things, I am by far not a PC gaming expert. So I only knew of the ROG handheld probably not long after the announcement that Microsoft was coming out with their own thing. And then I later found out that this was not a handheld that Microsoft is building. This is just something that they are merely placing their own ecosystem, their UI, on an already established device that is a competitor to the Steam Deck. I know that was a lot. That was a mouthful. I should get some water because I am talking a lot here. But anyway, 41 minutes so far here. Did I even address everything here with Microsoft? Let me see. I talked about the layoffs. I talked about AI. I talked about the game cancellations. I talked about the ROG Ally, its price. I talked about the Game Pass profitability. I think I nailed everything. If there's something I have not covered in this video, then let me know. Because I'm trying to think right now, is there something else that people are bitching and complaining about with Microsoft that I did not talk about right now? Did I talk about everything? Well, one other thing. The continued rumor of the upcoming Xbox console that is going to be a hybrid of console and PC developed. Now this is the thing. Based on the rumors, and I believe the rumors to be true, Microsoft is developing their new console in partnership with AMD, because the Xbox president, the woman Sarah Bond, she came out with that AMD presentation, which was kind of odd to me because, to my understanding, AMD has provided the chips for both the Xbox and the PlayStation since, if I'm not mistaken, the 7th generation, or at least the 8th generation. So I don't know why exactly that announcement was made, unless it was just to kind of just put it in the eyes of the public that, hey, Microsoft and AMD, we are again officially partnering up. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe you have a different opinion. You could let me know in the comment section. But to go beyond that, Microsoft's console that's going to be the 10th generation along with the PlayStation 6 is going to have full Steam integration. And this is going to be very, very interesting because it is going to afford the usability of PlayStation 6 games on this Xbox console. Why? Because PlayStation, Sony, is going to continue porting some of their games onto PC. And it's ironic. I want to bring this point up real quick, is that Sony, for all of the criticisms and the critiques that they make for Microsoft, wouldn't you know it, that Sony has been X-copying Microsoft for a very long time when it comes to the whole Game Pass thing, when it comes to porting their first-party titles onto PC, even though Sony, once upon a time, I hate to tell it to you Sony fanboys, but the information is out there. Sony officially at one point in time said that they will not be porting their first-party titles over to PC. And what did they end up doing? Their first-party game that they ported to PC, the first game was, if I'm not mistaken, was Horizon Zero Dawn. I think it was either that game or the sequel, but that was the first game from the first party of Sony to be ported to PC. And I say all that to say this, that Sony will continue to port games to PC. And as a result of the next Microsoft hybrid console is going to be able to play PC games. So by extension, Xbox console users are going to have access to PlayStation games. Now, that is going to be huge. So one article that I've been hearing is, how is Microsoft going to handle the financials when it comes to the ecosystems? For instance, if you're going to have an Xbox that's going to be a PC console hybrid, which means you're going to have Steam integration. I believe you're probably going to have, I think the other ecosystem, I think it might be ROG. I think that's another ecosystem. You could tell me if I'm incorrect or not. So how is Microsoft going to work out the financials of a person that buys a game on Steam through the Xbox console PC hybrid? I don't know if that makes sense. Let me rephrase that. Whatever Microsoft decides to call the upcoming 10th generation PC console hybrid, if I own that system and through the console I go through Steam and I buy a PlayStation game off of Steam via that console, how is Microsoft going to get any money off of that? That's what I think that's going to be the tricky thing that Microsoft are going to have to work out with Valve, which is the company that owns Steam. But I do believe that they're going to see the benefit of working together, because as far as I'm concerned, Microsoft wants to get further into the PC market, and having Steam integration is going to be key for that. By comparison, Valve wants to get deeper into console, so partnering up with Microsoft is a means to an end for them. So this is the reason why I am 1,000,000,000% confident that the rumors of the PC console Xbox is going to be a thing. And as far as I'm concerned, Nintendo and Sony are going to be put on the back foot, because now they are going to be forced to double and triple down on their first party development studios, because this new Xbox is going to be able to play our Xbox games, our Game Pass, and anything that's in Steam. So it's going to be very interesting as time goes on. But let me know what you think. And hopefully this long ass video has earned your subscription. If you have any comments, please leave them in the description. As I said at the beginning of the video, I will link that Dustin Legary video for you to check out. I definitely urge you to check it out. And hopefully I can convert a few of my subscribers to one of my paid channel memberships. It'll greatly help me out financially. And because I'm looking to level up my production. As you can see, I got the new Fifine K688 microphone. Eventually, I want to upgrade my laptop. I do have my Insta360 link to webcam that this is how you're seeing me. And I'm going to put affiliate links to those as well. So again, hopefully if this is your first time here, hopefully I did a good job breaking down all of the news that I can think of that's going on with Microsoft. I'm pretty sure there's probably going to be 20 million other things after this video is uploaded. Let me know how I did. If you have any disagreements, let me know. Maybe you can teach me something, and maybe I can teach you something. I don't run an echo chamber on my channel. I am 100% welcoming for people who have differing opinions. And that's something I pride myself on. We're all adults here. I'm 44 years old, a grown-ass man. I am open for disagreements. But I do hope that I was able to shed some light on the things relating to Microsoft. I'm pretty sure this will definitely not be the last that I cover with this. And also, if you're still with me, there was no B-roll for this video, no fancy graphics, no fancy edits, no nothing. Maybe I'll add in actually, I don't even know. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But let me know. Maybe I could have just uploaded this as a damn podcast or something. Anyway, I'm out. I'm gonna get me a whole lot of water because my mouth is dry as the Mojave Desert talking. And I'm out of here. Peace.